We often think of the woods as being quite a nice, cheerful place, filled with lots of wonderful wildlife, and, well, most of us love camping out. But this is the scary month, the month of Halloween. So, in this installment, it's more fear the woods. That's what these campers went through, whether it's a paranormal thing or just something creepy out there, someone creepy out there, maybe not a dead person. There's a lot of things to fear in the woods, from wild animals to weird creatures of the night, even of the humankind. So, I'll let you decide whether or not this is paranormal or not. Some of it may be and some of it may not be. Here's a few Reddit users who fear the woods. The first one went by the username the Kiesler. He and his girlfriend were on a road trip through California when they found a relatively empty campsite. They made dinner and went to bed. Sounds relatively easy, right? But, and yes, there's always a but, they were woken up in the middle of the night by someone whistling outside their tent. I'm guessing not a bear. And the tune to the whistling was, "When the saints go marching in." It wasn't singing, no, it was whistling. We all know that song, "When the Saints Go Marching In." They laid there in utter silence, hoping whoever it was would just go away. But then the whistling turned into chanting. And the chanting said, "When you sleep here, you disrespect me. And when you disrespect me, you disrespect the U.S. Marines." They knew they just needed to leave, because I would be gone with the wind. So they quietly climbed from their tent into their truck, and they just hauled butt, right? They didn't worry about their stuff. They just got out of there like I would. They went to a neighboring town, got into a motel room, and then the next morning, they drove back to the campsite to retrieve their belongings they left behind. As they were leaving, they saw a campsite that was next to them, where a family had been staying. They asked them about it, and the family told them, yes, and the singing did not stop when you left. It went on for another 2 to 3 hours. Boy, I bet they were glad they left and they could get some sleep. So paranormal, I'm thinking probably not, but a lunatic. The next one, Reddit user Bear Hunter 420. Went camping in Manistee, I think it was, National Forest in northern Michigan. He picked a spot on the river that had better access to fishing and kayaking. Later that night, as he sat around his campfire, he noticed there was another campfire showing through my page the trees. About 300 yards away. Then the chanting began. When he got a closer look, he realized it was actually a burning cross. 5 minutes into the chanting, and then he heard gunfire start. About at least 10 different guns going off, followed by yells about white power. And based on the level of the noise, it seemed there must be at least 20 people. He packed up, of course, and he skedaddled away. And yeah, I would. Sorry, but I would leave. A Reddit user, Traven, I think it was, camping in Pololu Valley on the Big Island of Hawaii. And they had 2 massive centipedes in their tents. So they packed up that area and they left to go to another one at 3 o'clock in the morning. When he got at the top of the valley, he paused to take a break and he looked out across the coastline. That's when he saw 15 to 20 flickering torch lights a few valleys over. Now those valleys are for experienced hikers only. Plus, it would be strange for that many people to be up at that time of the night. So the only thing it pointed to was the local lore that describes ghosts of Hawaiian warriors. And I've heard of that before too. Marching miles in the dead of the night. As a matter of fact, I think they even said, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I heard that local Hawaiian lore, but that you shouldn't cross their path or look at them or anything like that, but put your head down. Could be wrong, but I think so. But anyway, he was far enough away, so. A Reddit user called Dashboard for Fire saw what seemed to be like an alien come out of the woods behind the house when they were about 10 years old. They were playing in their room at about 11 p.m. I had to usually be in bed about that time, but, you know. And they had a sliding glass door to their room. And it was open, and the blinds were pulled back. That's when they saw a figure approaching. They looked out the door, and they thought at first it was just a neighbor passing by. But as it got closer, they realized it had to be something else. Something else. It stopped at the door and stared at the Reddit user. It was dark black with a rounded head and stood about 6 foot tall. It had 2 arms and 2 legs and was incredibly thin. After it stared for a few minutes, it turned around and was gone. Of course, they yelled at their mom to come. Their mom came to the room, of course, and didn't believe them because, thought probably it was just their imagination. I'm going to say it could have been an alien, but if it came out of the woods like they said, probably not. Could it have been some weird creature, I even hate to use the word demon or something, but who knows what it was. Whatever it was obviously didn't bother them, so. And another Reddit user, Snaggy from Jot, and his girlfriend were sitting in their car that was parked at a rest area. And they were having something to eat after visiting Mount St. Helens. It was raining, so the windows were fogged, and it was getting dark. The couple were minding their own business when suddenly there was a series of 3 knocks on the driver's side window. They were both startled, of course, because there was no one else in the parking lot. And it was night and it was raining. Even more terrifying was the driver's side, where the knocks came from, of the car, was overlooking an embankment. He rolled down his window and he looked out, but you're right, no one was there. Thoroughly creeped out, as I'm sure we would all be, they left immediately. Later, they read a park flyer that a man had died there in that spot during the eruption. Ever since, they wondered if it was the man's ghost trying desperately to be saved. Maybe sometimes it's not always the ghost, but things get caught up and it's like a time loop. Could have been the man from back when he was trying to get out. Reddit user Lupus said me and my boyfriend went camping in the woods, central Scotland. Heard some shrieking in the woods, in the bushes, but just thought it was our friends who were supposed to come. So I guess they ignored it. Also, there was a slug in the tent, so they didn't want to camp anymore. So they packed up and started to walk through the woods. In the dark. There were snapping twigs, of course, behind us all the way until we were at the exit of the woods. And suddenly, running footsteps towards us. We both ran screaming until we got to our friend's house. The one that was supposed to meet them. And he was still lying on his couch in his pajamas. He was still going to come, but he didn't get ready yet. And they always wondered, what? They never did find out what that was, but Reddit user Paranormal Voice. The summer after my second year in high school, I went up to Pikes National Forest in Colorado for a summer field biology camp. It was cool because I never went camping before. I had a small 2-man tent that I shared with my buddy from school. We met this other kid at camp and became really good friends with him. His parents were wealthy, so he had a 10-man tent that was about 10 feet away from ours. The night before the incident happened, his tent was annihilated from a huge windstorm that blew in from the valley. My tent was fine because it was low to the ground. Anyway, he stayed in our tent. They let him sleep in theirs all. I slept closest to the door because I always had to pee in the middle of the night. And I didn't want to climb over people. So that night, I woke up and went to pee, as usual, and came back into the tent. I was lying there for a while because there was a lightning storm overhead, and I was watching the light illuminate my tent. I started hearing whispering in the middle of a storm, mind you. It was females whisper back and forth. I tried to hear what it was saying, but it was inaudible. The whispering started getting closer and closer. Nice. Until it was right up by the tent, by my right ear. Then it stopped. I didn't hear anyone walking or anything. Then all of a sudden, the lightning lit up the tent, and there were shadows of people casting onto the side of the tent. that would freak me out. That's when the chanting began. It sounded like a different language and all females. I just closed my eyes and slipped under my sleeping bag. I would too. I put my hands over my ears. The next day, after breakfast, the new guy says, "Pretty wild night last night." And I said, "The lightning?" He says, "No, the chanting. I think this place is cursed or something." It was nice to know I wasn't the only one to hear. I also make sure when I go camping now, I stop drinking 2 hours before bedtime. It's always a good idea anyway. And now for the last story. I went camping with some friends and we were followed by something that none of us could explain. It left human footprints, but with 3 toes. And we heard some howling that sounded nothing like you would hear in East Texas. We also had heard stuff happen too. Well, we also had weird stuff happen too. I can't even talk to you. Like my phone answered a call, even though I left it in the car 5 miles from our campsite. And that was from Wayward Son 38. Some pretty scary stories. Not all of them probably paranormal, but would you want to go in the woods and have all these things happen? Of course, I love camping, so I would take a chance. Maybe not at Halloween time. Anyway, I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, and over and out.